The Alaskan wilderness is a colossus carved from ice and shadow, its vastness a rebuke to the maps we etch to claim it. South of Wrangelisti, Elias National Park, where the earth buckles into ridges sharp as knives and pines stand sentinel in endless ranks. It's a realm that doesn't invite you. It endures you, its patience older than the glaciers that scar its face. I'm Caleb Hart, a tracker shaped by the Appalachian foothills, where as a boy I learned to read the world's secrets in a bent blade of grass, a scuff of dirt, a twig snapped underfoot. Those lessons, patience, silence, the art of seeing what others miss, were raw or the army refined into a blade, honing me into a man who could vanish into the wild and find what didn't want finding. Deserters, smugglers, ghosts of men who thought the earth could hide them. By the summer of 2009, I'd spent 12 years tracking across continents, my boots grinding paths through jungles thick with rain, deserts baked to ash, and forests where the air itself seemed to whisper warnings. It's a job that demands steady hands, a clear mind, and a sense of humor to keep the dark from settling too deep. But in Alaska's frozen heart, I learned there are things no tracker can outwit, things the wilderness cradles not to shield, but to feed. We were a team of 5, dropped into the wild under a lie as thin as the frost dusting our gear. Monitor poaching activity, scare off hunters chasing bear or moose beyond the law's reach. Officially, that was the mission, a routine patrol to appease bureaucrats who liked their wilderness neat and accounted for. Unofficially, we were on a retrieval operation, the details locked behind the brass's clipped voices and classified folders, their eyes sliding past ours in the briefing room's sterile glow. They fed us scraps, find the target, secure it, report back. Never enough to question, just enough to move. I'd run ops like this before, where the orders were shadows cast by truths we weren't meant to see. But this one carried a weight I couldn't name, a chill that lingered beyond the Anchorage hangar's draft. My team was a mosaic of scars and quirks, each of us molded by the job's relentless grind. Mason, our sniper, was a Texan carved from flint, his face a mask that cracked only under fire, his humor as absent as a smile he'd forgotten how to wear. Dupree, our medic, was a burst of warmth in the cold, her laugh too loud for the woods, her stories of Tinder misadventures a tether to a world we rarely touched. Andrews, the comms guy, wielded sarcasm like a blade, coaxing signals from tin cans and stubbornness, his hands steady even when his voice shook. Ramirez, the rookie, was a coil of restless energy, his eyes wide with the need to prove he belonged, his boots still stiff with newness. We moved through the forest in a tight formation, fanning out just enough to sweep the ground but close enough to snap back if the wild turned sour. The air was a blade, sharp with pine and the metallic bite of frost, each breath a cold fire in my lungs, a reminder of the wilderness's indifference. The pines loomed dense, their branches a lattice that choked the sunlight into frail, flickering threads, casting the forest floor in a dim, green haze that seemed to pulse with its own rhythm. Every step crunched, leaves brittle as bone, twigs snapping like promises broken. Each sound a gunshot in the stillness, prickling my nerves like thorns. I tracked in places where the earth sang with life, where birds chattered and wind sighed through the canopy. But this forest was different. It didn't hum. It held its breath, its silence not empty but expectant, a predator's pause before the strike. The trees watched, their bark etched with lichen like runes I couldn't read, their roots clawing the earth as if to anchor secrets too heavy to unearth. Hours in, Andrews's voice crackled over the radio, low and taut, cutting through the quiet like a wire pulled tight. "Campsite ahead," he said, and we converged, boots scuffing the frost-dusted earth, the stench hitting us first. A foul blend of spoiled meat and something sharper, something that stung my nose and burrowed into my throat. The clearing was small, its edges ringed by pines that leaned inward, their needles a rust-colored shroud across the ground, their branches knitting overhead to filter the light into a sickly glow. 2 tents stood or half stood, their nylon torn into ribbons that fluttered faintly, their stakes bent as if ripped from the dirt by a force too strong for hands. A fire pit sat cold, its ashes scattered like spilled secrets, and among them, half buried, was a backpack, its fabric singed at the edges, its straps tangled with moss that seemed to cling too tightly. Mason knelt, his rifles but nudging it open, revealing a name tag stitched in faded thread, D. Jensen. I scanned the clearing, my eyes tracing the ground for tracks. Boot prints, claw marks, anything, but found nothing, just a smoothness that felt deliberate, as if the earth had been swept clean by a hand that knew our ways. Andrews muttered about a bear, his voice thin, almost hopeful, but I kept my thoughts locked tight. Bears don't burn backpacks. Bears don't erase their own trails. We lingered too long, the stench thickening, a cloying weight that coated my tongue and twisted my gut. I'd smelled death before. Rotting game, bodies left too long in the heat. But this was wrong, laced with a metallic tang that didn't belong to the forest I knew, a warning woven into the air itself. "Move out," I said, my voice steady though my pulse wasn't, and we pushed deeper, the pines closing ranks, their shadows stretching longer as the sun sank unseen behind the canopy. The second campsite was worse, a wound in the wilderness that bled silence. Blood smeared the trees, streaked across their bark like paint flung in rage, the ground littered with fragments. A boot sole, a shattered flashlight, a scrap of cloth that might have been a shirt. Bones lay scattered, too clean, their surfaces polished as if licked bare, though no flesh remained to draw wolves or ravens. Ramirez gagged, his face gray, and Dupree handed him a stick of gum, her voice calm but her eyes tight, betraying the crack in her armor. "Chew. Keeps the nausea down." I didn't ask for one. I'd seen worse or thought I had, but the forest's quiet pressed harder now, its gaze heavier, as if it weighed each step we took, each breath we stole. The forest deepened as we pressed on, its pines growing denser, their trunks a wall that swallowed sound and light, their needles carpeting the earth in a shroud that muffled our steps but amplified every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves. The stench clung tighter, a sour blend of rot and metal that coated my tongue and pulsed in my sinuses. A scent that wasn't just decay but a declaration, a mark left by something that knew we were here. I tracked across continents, red trails in the bend of grass, the scuff of boots, the blood of prey, but this wilderness defied me. The ground was too smooth, the underbrush too pristine, as if the forest itself conspired to erase what it had seen, its secrets locked in roots that twisted like veins beneath the frost. By late afternoon, the light had thinned to a bruised gray, the sun a memory behind the canopy's chokehold. We stumbled into a clearing, its edges ragged with thorns that snagged at our packs, its air thick with a stillness that felt alive, watchful, a presence that pressed against my chest and quickened my pulse. In its center stood a totem, grotesque and towering, a sculpture of bones and sticks lashed together with sinew that glistened wetly, as if freshly torn from some still warm carcass. Skulls, deer, fox, something larger, its shape too warped to name, grinned from its frame, their sockets hollow, their jaws wired shut with strips of hide that dangled like tattered flags. Hanging from its crossbars were scraps of clothing, some stained dark with blood, their threads fraying in the faint breeze, whispering of lives snuffed out and left to rot. Dupree swore, her voice a sharp crack in the quiet, her hand twitching toward her medkit as if instinct could mend what lay before us. Mason's eyes swept the treetops, his finger hovering near his trigger, his silence louder than any curse. Ramirez stared, his breath shallow, his rookie bravado crumbling under the totem's gaze. I'd seen markers before, hunters' cairns, tribal wards to keep predators at bay. But this wasn't protection. It was a summons, a beacon for something that didn't fear us, something that welcomed our intrusion with a hunger I could feel in my bones, a pulse that matched the forest's own. We circled it, slow and wary, our boots crunching the frost-dusted earth, the totem's shadow stretching long and jagged, its edges blurring into the pines as if it belonged to them, as if it grew from them. The stench was strongest here, a miasma of rot and metal that stung my eyes and lodged in my throat, as if the ground exhaled it, a breath from some unseen maw below. Ramirez reached out, his hand trembling toward a blood-crusted sleeve. A blue flannel, its buttons glinting faintly, but I grabbed his wrist, my grip tight. "Don't," I said, my voice low, though I couldn't name the instinct that drove it. The totem felt alive, its bones not relics but sentinels, their hollow gazes tracking us, their silence a judgment we couldn't escape. "This isn't right," Dupree whispered, her eyes locked on a shred of cloth, its edges frayed like a scream frozen in time. Mason said nothing, his rifle steady but his jaw clenched, a crack in his stone facade. Andrews circled wider, his radio crackling faintly, its static a thin shield against the clearing's weight. We set camp a mile away, as far as we dared without severing the totem's pull, its presence a thread tugging at the edge of my mind. Mason took first watch, his silhouette sharp against the fire's glow, his eyes scanning the dark while the rest of us tried to rest. Sleep came in fragments, my dreams a tangle of skulls and shadows, the totem's bones whispering names I couldn't hear. I woke to Dupree shaking me, her face pale, her finger pointing to the clearing's edge where Mason should have been standing. He wasn't there. His rifle leaned against a pine, its barrel glinting faintly in the moonlight. The ground around it churned, scuffed dirt, crushed leaves, a faint smear of blood trailing into the trees like a path drawn in ink. Ramirez lunged forward, his voice cracking, but I held him back, my hand tight on his shoulder, my own pulse hammering. "We don't rush in," I said, though the words tasted like ash, my mind racing with images of Jensen's backpack, the blood-smeared trees, the totem's grin. The forest watched, its silence a trap, and I'd learned long ago, you don't chase what wants to be followed. We regrouped, Andrew staying to guard the camp, his radio spitting static that sounded too much like breaths, too much like laughter. Dupree, Ramirez, and I followed the trail, our flashlights carving thin beams through the dusk, the forest closing in like a fist. The pines loomed closer, their branches clawing the air, their roots snaking across the path as if to trip us, to claim us. The air grew heavier, pressing against my chest, each breath a labor against the stench that thickened with every step. Rot, metal, a sourness that coiled in my gut and whispered of things older than the ice we walked on. The trail led to a ravine, its edges jagged with rock, the blood smears fading into gouges. Deep, irregular scars in the stone, too wide for a bear, too deliberate for chance. Ramirez spotted it first, his voice a choked whisper. Mason's boot, jutting from a pile of leaves at the ravine's base, its laces tangled with frost that gleamed like eyes in the dark. Dupree started down, her rope taut, her movement steady despite the tremor in her hands. But the pile shifted, not leaves but something else. Something that moved with a fluidity that turned my blood to ice. It unfolded like a nightmare given form, rising upright but hunched, its shoulders bulging with muscle under mottled skin that mimicked tree bark, its limbs ending in claws that gleamed like obsidian in the flashlight's beam. Its head turned, nostrils flaring, a hiss snarl splitting the air, a sound that vibrated in my bones and drowned out Ramirez's shout. It wasn't a bear, wasn't a wolf. It was something older, something that didn't belong to the world we'd named, its eyes glinting with a malice that saw us not as threats but as prey. Dupree froze, halfway down, her rope swaying faintly, and Ramirez fired, his shots wild, the echoes swallowed by the ravine's walls. The creature was faster, dragging her into the dirt before she could scream, blood spraying in a dark arc against the rock, her medkit tumbling uselessly into the dark. I grabbed Ramirez, pulling him back, his rifle still barking, my own voice lost to the roar in my skull as we ran, the forest blurring, the growls chasing us like a tide that never broke. We stumbled back to camp, Ramirez shaking, his rifle clutched tight, his eyes darting to shadows that seemed to move when I blinked. My hands trembled, though I'd never admit it, the weight of Dupree's scream still ringing in my ears, her blood a stain I couldn't unsee. Andrews was gone, his gear untouched, a radio, a pack, a half-eaten ration bar, left like a still life of absence, the fire's embers casting frail light across a camp that felt smaller, frilier, the trees looming closer, their shadows sharper, as if the forest had tightened its grip while we were away. The radio crackled, static laced with a wet, chewing sound that turned my stomach, a sound that wasn't just noise but a message, a taunt from the dark. Ramirez paced, muttering about desertion, about home, his voice fraying at the edges, but I didn't answer. None of us had signed up for this, not for totems, not for creatures, not for a wilderness that hunted with a purpose I couldn't name. Night fell like a guillotine, cold and absolute. The stars hidden by a canopy that pulsed with its own life, its branches swaying without wind. Their rustle a whisper that wasn't just air. We set a perimeter. Tripwires strung with cans, flares staked at the edges. Anything to buy time, but the forest mocked us, its silence deeper, its stench thicker, wrapping us in a shroud of rot and metal that clung like damp cloth. The first wire snapped, a flare igniting the trees in a red glow that burned my eyes, and there it was, low to the ground, stalking, its eyes glinting like oil slicks, its claws raking the earth with a deliberation that chilled me more than its speed. Ramirez fired, screaming, his shots tearing through the underbrush, but the creature moved like liquid, dodging, toying. Its hiss snarl a blade that cut through the night. It lunged, pinning him, its weight crushing him into the dirt. His screams drowned by the wet, ripping sound of claws meeting flesh, his rifle skittering uselessly across the frost. I ran, my boots pounding, branches whipping my face, their sting a sharp counterpoint to the terror flooding my veins. The creature's growls chased me, a tide that grew louder, closer, its claws scraping stone somewhere behind. The forest blurred, a maze of shadow and ice, until I tripped in another clearing, sprawling over something hard, Andrew's, or what was left of him. His chest was hollowed, ribs splayed like a book torn open, his face frozen in a scream the night had silenced, his eyes wide and unseeing, reflecting the faint moonlight like mirrors to nowhere. I scrambled up, lungs burning, heart slamming against my ribs, and kept running, the growls fading but never gone, the forest's eyes never closing. Hours bled into eternity, my legs moving on instinct, my mind a storm of claws and blood, until I stumbled onto a gravel road, a truck's headlights blinding me, its driver, a grizzled man named Roy, pulling me in without questions, his face pale as he saw my blood-streaked uniform, his hands tight on the wheel as he drove, the road humming beneath us like a lifeline I didn't deserve. The official report was a fiction spun from half-truths. Mission failure, environmental hazards, my team, Mason, Dupree, Andrews, Ramirez, declared Kia, their caskets empty, their funerals a parade of lies under a gray Anchorage sky. I sat through them, the stench of rot still in my nose, the totem skulls still grinning in my mind's eye, their sockets whispering of things still hunting, still waiting. Weeks later, a package arrived. No sender, no note, just a photograph of the totem, its scraps replaced with fresh cloth, blood still wet, glinting in the flash's glare. The words scrawled on the back were a knife to my gut. They're still out there. The wilderness didn't end at the road. It followed me, its claws sunk deep, its stench a shadow that lingered in my dreams. I'd seen a cave in those nightmares, a black maw in the earth where the totem's bones gathered, their skulls piled high, their sockets gleaming with a light that wasn't light but hunger. Months after Anchorage, I dug into the files, pulling strings with old contacts, chasing whispers of other missions gone wrong. A cave in Montana, sealed after a team vanished. A swamp in Louisiana, its waters red with something not quite blood. A desert canyon where bones lay scattered, too clean, too deliberate. They overlapped, these stories, threads of a tapestry woven with claw marks and silence, and Alaska's shadow loomed largest, its totem a marker for something older than the ice, something the wilderness guarded with a jealousy I could still feel. I left the service, traded the wild for a cabin in the lower 48, where the trees stood sparse and the horizon stretched wide, unshadowed. But the forest clung to me, in the rustle of leaves that sounded too much like breathing, in the metallic tang on the wind at dusk, in nightmares of Dupree's scream, Andrew's hollowed chest, the totem's grin. I'd wake gasping, hands clenched around sheets damp with sweat, the cave's black mouth waiting behind my lids, its walls slick with blood and secrets. The evidence haunted me, the shredded tents, their nylon torn like promises, the blood-smeared trees, their bark a canvas of rage, the gouges in stone, too deep, too precise, the totem's skulls, their silence a scream I couldn't unhear. They were proof of a truth the government buried in redacted files and empty graves. A truth that pulsed in the wilderness's heart, alive and waiting. I'd walk the flatland trails at dawn, the sun a frail shield against the memories, and wonder, was it one creature or a brood? Did it stalk us for sport, or was it guarding something deeper, something buried in the cave I'd never seen but felt? The totem was the key, its bones a map to a hunger older than man, its scraps a ledger of the lost. I'd check my pistol at night, its weight a ritual, its barrel cold against my palm, and listen to the wind, its rustle too alive, too knowing, a whisper that wasn't just air. The wilderness had marked me, its claws a scar I carried in my dreams, a reminder that survival wasn't escape, just a delay. Alaska is patient, its wilderness a mind that never sleeps, its ridges a jagged hymn to a sky that offers no mercy. I see its peaks from my cabin's porch, faint against the flatland's horizon, their shadows a call I fight to ignore. I don't track anymore, the job lost its pull when the trails turned predator, when the earth stopped speaking and started listening. My home is quiet, its walls clean, but the memories cling. Mason's rifle against the pine, Dupree's blood on the rock, Ramirez's scream, Andrew's hollowed chest, the totem skulls watching, always watching. They're evidence of something alive, something waiting, its claws honed by centuries, its hunger a pulse that beats beneath the ice. I keep my pistol close, check the locks thrice, avoid the woods after dusk. The government sealed the files, burned the camp, but they can't burn the truth. It's out there, in the hollows, the ravines, the caves where light drowns. The wilderness doesn't forget, doesn't forgive, and I've felt its gaze, seen its teeth bared in the dark. I walked away, but I'm not free, just marked. Another track in a forest that never stops hunting. Sometimes at night, I hear it. A faint thump, like claws on stone, a rustle that isn't just wind. I don't look out the window. I don't need to. The totem's there, in my mind, its bones whispering, its scraps fresh with blood, its message clear. They're still out there.